Hi, I'm Carrie. Welcome to my channel. This video is one that was requested by a few people after I did my June monthly musings video. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how mediumship found me. I didn't search for it. It found me and kind of came out of nowhere. The fact that I'm filming this video, I think the 12th time, is comical. So I'm going to try to be a little bit more precise and not babble as much as I did in the other videos. So the whole seeing spirits thing started when I was a child. The incident I remember, I was somewhere between the age of 10 and 12. And when you're a kid, the only kind of spirits that you want to see is another kid with a sheet over their head and the eyes cut out. You don't want to see a figure that's transparent almost, that doesn't look like it's quite touching the ground, or it fades away as it gets closer to the ground. So seeing spirits at such a young age was terrifying, and it happened more than once. It wasn't just that one incident. It happened all through that age till my teen years, and it happened into adulthood too, until I had to basically say enough. I don't want to see you physically anymore. And even after saying that, a few have bled through here and there, but I try not to let it, because I don't want to see it. It's too jarring to see them in person. Other people may have no problem seeing spirits in person, but yeah, that's not for me, even though it happens to me. I started opening up and developing some sort of reading practice in the late 90s. And I was heavily into Doreen virtue decks. I had a tarot, but you know, the stigma that came along with that, of seeing that as bad, because I grew up in the church and I'm in a community that isn't really open. Well, now it's a little bit different, but at that period of time, they weren't really open to anything like that. None of my friends believed in anything like that. I was an outsider. And so I had a tarot, but I wasn't using it. And the angel decks felt safe, and they felt comforting, and you know, all that stuff that goes along with that. And I felt that that was okay, because you know, here I was going to church, but I'm tapping into angelic energy. That was my justification. But this is when I started to learn to tap into spirit guides. And so I thought at the time, I'm just tapping into spirit guides. I'm learning to open my third eye through meditation. I'm learning to meditate, period. And I'm allowing the spirit guide or angelic energy or divine beings into my energy space. I didn't also realize that by doing that, it was also opening the door to all spirits. And maybe that sounds naive. Starting around 2001, the internet came into my life. The internet came into our house in the late 90s, probably around 99. But in 2001, I discovered message boards, chat rooms, that kind of thing. And that's when I started connecting people to their spirit guides, because I had really honed in on that. I could do it very quickly and easily. And I basically channeled that energy through. So in the process of learning to open up to spirit guides, divine beings, I learned automatic writing. I would put up a ton of protections around me, and I would then open myself up to let spirit basically take over and write through me. And the handwriting always changed. If I compared it to mine, was always completely different. And I did that for quite some time. So then I started working, getting back into the cards more and starting reading for people outside of just doing this spirit guide connection. I was giving free readings all over the place, and a lot of them to my husband's coworkers, because I didn't want my coworkers to know what I was doing, but I didn't care what his coworkers knew. And this one woman didn't have email, and she kept hounding my husband to be able to come in person to have a reading from me. So he asked me, and I reluctantly agreed to it. We scheduled a day and a time. She showed up. I had my cards out and ready. You know, I thought, here we go. I'm going to be a professional reader. She asked a question, and I just started, laying these cards out. And I'm looking at them, and why I got the tarot out is beyond me, because at that point in time, I had the tarot, I played around with the tarot, but I was really focused on the more of the oracle cards. And so I lay these tarot out, and I lay some oracle out, and it was just, I just looked at them, and I don't even remember if I said anything to her in regards to what the cards were showing me. Now, anybody who's seen Doreen's decks knows that there's writing all over them, so I could have probably figured something out, but I was like frozen. And the whole time, it's just blank, and I'm hearing in my mind in someone else's voice, get a pen and paper, get a pen and paper, over and over. I scoop up the cards, so I told her, could you excuse me for a minute? I need to grab a notebook. And all of a sudden, just like this flood of information started coming in. And I started scribbling down words and numbers and phrases, and it was just all coming at once. And I'm not saying anything to her. I'm just writing stuff down. And then I said, what was your question? And she asked me again, and I looked on the paper for the answer, but I didn't see it. I heard this voice. So I responded to her. And then I just started randomly reading her stuff off the paper, because I didn't know where to go at that point. But I was continually being shown a tree. And this tree was large. And there was something with the tree, and I was trying to bring in what I was seeing. And I said, and I smell burning wood. Either this tree was burned to the ground, or it was struck by lightning. I said, it was on fire at one point. And I said, it looks like there's carvings in the tree. I don't know if they're initials, number, but there's a carving in the tree. And then it finally hit her that the tree was on the grandparents' property, their farm, and the tree was the oldest tree on the property, It did have initials carved into the tree, and the tree got struck by lightning. And it was the grandfather, eventually, that I found out was coming through to say he knew what happened to the tree. That was the very first experience that I had with anything like that. So then my grandmother dies in 2004, and I have this huge experience during her death where I'm tasting tomatoes and olives. My mouth is watering, and I knew that her father was there. I could see 3 beams of light up by her head, and I knew that her father and her sister were there to help her. It was after that that the floodgates just flew wide open for me as far as hearing from spirits, because it was like every dead relative that I never knew in my life crawled out of the corner and had something to say. Anyway, then I had a baby, so that consumed my life, and I didn't care about spirits, cards, or anything. And then my grandfather died in 2000. Now, hospice had been in there a couple months, and he had gotten to the point where I don't think he wasn't speaking. So I went up to visit, and I'm sitting in the room where they had put a hospital bed for him. I think a couple of my uncles were in the room. I know my brother was, and a cousin. And I'm just looking at my grandfather, and I could see this like silvery white thread cord coming from like the lower part of his chest and upward. But then it was only about 2 inches long, max. And I even got up and like waved my hand over where it was. But I waved my hand because I couldn't believe that I was seeing this. And I've pondered on that for a while, and I knew when I saw that cord he was dying that day. I don't know why, I just knew it. I did not give that information to anybody. I pondered on that cord and wondered if it was like his life force, shrinking, if that was his soul connection. But anyway, that evening, he ended up dying right before midnight. So now this is the man who doesn't believe in any spirit talk, anything of that nature. And here he comes to me in my dream the next day of wanting me to pass messages on to his children. And I told him I didn't want to do it. I said, I don't want to do that. So he became persistent. So I think there was 2 days between his death and the funeral. All day long, he would be in my head. And all night long, he would be in my head. And finally, I sat down with a piece of paper, and I wrote the kids' names, and I was like, I'll take 2 sentences. And I just wrote down what I was hearing for each one. Now, these are his children, so I know that they're not going to be open to what I'm going to tell them. I know it. I had debated the whole time we were at the funeral home of what I was going to do. And then I saw him in the funeral home. And I was like, okay, so he's doubling down on wanting me to say something to the family. And then I'm sitting there against the wall, close to where my aunts and uncles were standing to greet people as they came up to the casket. And I heard distinctly in his voice, what the hell is he doing here? So I'm looking around to see who he's talking about, my grandfather now in my head, and I see this man talking to my mother, and I hear him. And so I'm whispering back, I don't know. That's when I decided that, okay, I'm going to have to pass these messages on to whoever wants them. And I kind of approached each aunt or uncle separately and privately and asked if they wanted the message. I explained to them what had happened, what was going on, what I saw, and I said, I'm not just going to blurt it out. If you want to hear it, fine. If not, fine. And I would never do it again. In the other videos, I explained exactly what happened. And it was at that point, after that incident, that I said to Spirit, don't come to me. I don't want to see you, talk to you, know you, or anything. It was that unpleasant. But again, I gave choices. I didn't just walk up to them and say, hey, Pap said, and blurt it all out. And that's when I learned that just because a spirit comes to you with a message, you can keep it to yourself. You don't need to tell anybody about it. There is zero obligation to tell anybody about anything. Zero. And I know some may disagree with that, because I went round and round with somebody on this exact subject right here, as they felt because I had this gift or ability that it was my obligation to tell everybody what they needed to hear from whatever deceased loved ones. And you know what? People don't want to hear it. There's those out there that do, and they will seek a reading for it. Because now, after this whole incident with my grandfather's spirit, I had decided it was time for me to start doing readings. But I was just going to do regular readings, like psychic readings, whatever, email readings, those kind of things. I had no plan to go forward with mediumship readings. I thought it was just a family thing, you know. I remember this girl, this young girl. This was in the very beginning. I want to say the first year, maybe year and a half, that I decided to start taking on paid clients. And she came, and she only cared about two things. And she was like 21. So really, that's really what consumed her life: love and work. And that's all she wanted to know about. And there was a grandmother spirit that wanted to come through so badly, to the point that the spirit was like pushing her way in, taking over the reading, and not letting me answer the other questions for this girl. So I had to stop the reading, tell the girl, look, I need to just say this from your grandmother. I know that you didn't know her very well, because we had already had an exchange about that. I said, but I need to push her out of the way, and that's the only way I can do it. Because again, I didn't know how to do that at that point. So she said that was fine. I said everything that the grandmother needed to say. She couldn't really connect to it because her grandmother died when she was young, and her mother didn't have a good relationship with her mother. So therefore, that's why. And that was fine. But that was when I learned that I needed to tell certain spirits to shut up. And I didn't want them invading my space at that point in time. There has been numerous experiences where loved ones come through a reading, and I'm going to say that like 97% of the time, all the clients that have been here where it's happened have been very open and receptive to all of it and want to hear anything that I can bring through. My messages come through in different ways. They come through in pictures and my life experiences. They used to come through like a typewriter. I would see like words being typed out in my head. But it's progressed past that, and it's mostly in images and my life experiences. They'll show me something I've been through or something that I can then relate to them and ask them, you know, they're showing me this. This is something I went through, blah, blah, blah. You know, does that relate for you? And they, yes or no. But they will also give me some smell sometime. I will get certain smells. Sometimes depending on how strong the spirit is, I could pick up, you know, they show me a lot of their personality. And all spirit energy isn't the same. Some of the spirit energy coming in is very weak, and some of it is very, you know, strong and in my face, like vibrant energy to work with. So I'm going to give you one more story that happened last year with a reading with two sisters. But before I do that, I'm going to say that I wasn't exactly sure how to go about doing this. So I'm asking you to tell me what it is that you want to know. And if I only get one or two questions, I will just answer them in the comments. But what I would actually like to do is to put all the questions together and make a second whole video about it, which I would be more than happy to do. This is what I should have done in the beginning when I brought up the whole mediumship and asked if you would be interested in any of that. So the sisters. When I take appointments, I only take an appointment for one person at a time. Some of the things that come up in readings are too personal, and I don't think it's anybody's business what comes up in a reading. The one came in, and she was very reserved, very quiet, and I did her reading, and I told her I felt a mother energy here also. And did she have a mother in spirit? She said yes. The mother spirit started to show me certain things so she could validate that it was her. Like certain jewelry, certain things from childhood or whatever that she brought forward so the client could validate that that was her mother's spirit. And the woman validated everything that I said with a yes, except for this boat. I said, your mom is showing me that you want to buy a boat. And she says, no. And I go, well, she's showing me a boat. I said, it doesn't look big enough to go on a cruise, but maybe it's the image is just representing that. Are you taking a cruise coming up? She said, no. And the mother wouldn't drop it. It was push this boat, and I had to keep pushing this image out because the daughter had already said no, like 3 different ways that I asked. I told her some more, and then finished up her reading for her and was walking her to the door, and I asked if she was okay because something just seemed off. And she said yes, that she was fine. It was a really good reading. She goes, but on the way here, I was asking my mom to come through, and I said to her, Mom, if it's really you, please say the word. And she gave me one word. Let's just say the words bananas. Please say the word bananas. And then I'll know it's really your spirit because I told you to say it. So for 40 minutes, I gave this woman a reading. I said, you realize the things that I just showed you or told you are in your own personal home? And she said, yes. There's absolutely no way I could know anything about your home. I said, the jewelry that your mother talked about, the thing at the funeral that your mother talked about, there's no way I could know those things. And she showed those to me to help you understand that that was her spirit coming through for you. And she says, oh, I know, and I really appreciate that. And I said, okay. And she went out, and the other woman comes in. Again, I don't know that they're sisters. So the other woman come in. She had just a couple questions for me. I said, I have a mother energy here. And she goes, and I said, is your mother in spirit? And she said, yes. And she was all smiles and all bubbly. And I looked at her and I said, oh my God, you're the one with the boat. You are buying a boat. And she said, she started laughing and she said, yes, my husband wants to replace our boat. We are going to look at a boat this coming weekend. And I said, you are her sister. That's your sister that you came with. And she said, she started laughing and she said, yes, it is. And then the mother just flooded me with all this stuff about holidays and showing me these gatherings that this daughter puts on and a vacation that she missed going out on, and all these things that the mother wanted the daughter to know that she was there present for, and that she knew that they were happening. And the daughter was open to all of it. She was crying and she's like, that sounds just like my mom. And there were certain phrases that her mom was saying to me that she says, oh my God, that's my mother. She would say this at blah, blah, blah time. And it was a whole different reading. Same exact spirit, back to back, with two women I didn't know were sisters. And the second woman, who didn't put a block up to the reading because she was just open to whatever her mother had to tell her if her mother happened to come through, had a much more fulfilling experience during the reading than the first sister did. And I could have went on for 2 hours with this woman with the amount of stuff that the mother spirit was telling me. I had said to her when she was leaving, she thanked me over and over. And I said, please, whatever you feel comfortable with, share this interaction with your mother, with your sister. I said, I think this is the interaction that she wanted to have and didn't receive. And she says, I will definitely share this with her. It was wonderful, blah, blah, blah. And I thought about that reading, and that reading has stuck with me. I don't remember my mediumship readings. And I say that because I usually remove myself. I don't do trance readings because I'm fully present and fully capable and in control of my body. But I also have to slide over a little bit so spirit can come forward and say what they need to say. And that reading has really stuck with me this past year, of how the first sister who needed the healing and needed that experience from her mother didn't get it because she blocked and wrapped the whole thing up and around one word. And I know everyone who does this experiences spirit in different ways, in different forms. And I don't think any of us maybe do anything the exact same way. But those that don't do this offer curated TV shows that are highly edited to edit out the long pauses and the wrong answers. You don't see that in those half-hour programs. You see what they want you to see, where everything came through at the snap of a finger like that, and there was never anything that was amiss. And I know that that's not true. I saw a celebrity medium in person at an event, in a theater. They had more wrong answers than they had right. But that's not how it is on their TV show. And I know it's a little different because you're in an auditorium and you've got all these energies surrounding you. So it's a little bit more difficult to hone in on an area, person, or whatever that you need to hone in on. But at the same time, you know that those shows are highly edited and they don't show you all that other stuff. So if you ever do go get a mediumship reading, try to be open to whatever they have to bring forward. It takes a lot of work to pull in an energy like that, to pull it in and through you and interpret the signs and symbols that they're showing you, where I'm not trying to get symbols off of a card. I am just pulling it through myself from the energies that are around me. And it's a different feeling. So that's what I have to say about that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap this one up. And like I said, please leave comments or your, please leave kind comments. I'll put it that way. And your questions below. And if I get enough questions, I will definitely make a Spirit Talk round 2 in regards to this topic. So, you know, if you're developing and want to know some things that I did, or anything along those lines, or just something that you want to share with me, I would absolutely love to hear them. Thanks so much for stopping by today, hanging out with me, listening to my rambles, being open to this subject. I really appreciate those that have an open mind and listen to topics like this, because I was around closed-minded people in a closed-minded community for a very, very, very long time. So I'm just happy to share anything like this with you. In case I didn't say it already, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. And until I see you in the next one, bye.